morning. Welcome. Can you hear?
Hey, happy to
I've
be here.
opened the door. Walk in. Yes. Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's been a while, Antonio, and we've got everybody joining. Grateful Dan, hi going south. Michael C. Kim, our moderator, is not feeling very good. Tony, her back is hurting her, so we all are sending Kim our best because we love you, and everybody's here. So what I want to say is hi. And I also want to know what the hell is going on in your mind. Lately, like I know I went on my little tangent about the word doomer and being labeled and doomer adjacent and the negativity associated with the word. So here we are. So take it away and what's going on with you?
Yeah, well, thank you, Sandy. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. Obviously, yes, there is a personal catalyst that has me wanting to respond to an increasing sentiment I see in our community. Um, I was never one to reject the title Doomer. I don't think that the title itself is necessarily problematic. But what I do think is problematic is a certain tendency that I've started to see. And that is almost like a fatalism, a dogmatic fatalism. It's almost ideological. And it almost reminds me of almost like a sort of religious sort of fervor to it.
Ooh,
Uh,
don't like
and
that.
I grew up in the age where, first of all, I'm very repulsed by any type of, not religion itself, because I study religion in a secular sense, but anything that's dogmatic, anything that's ideological, anything that isn't continuously skeptical of the data set or, the reality around us is something that I get concerned about. Um,
All
it
right.
is a marker of anti-intellectualism, of course, and so that's why I see the parallel directly with religion, right? That there are certain pillars of faith that are demanded upon the practitioners, regardless of any type of rational deliberation. And there was an instance that I thought was kind of very interesting. There was a person, I'm not going to mention any names here, but he's a part of our community. And he reached out to me after I made a post on Facebook about a future goal of mine.
Oh, I
Really,
know the post. Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
the goal itself is irrelevant. It's more about the idea of having goals or hopes or any type of sense of a future self. And I think that's under attack in our community, which I think is, in some sense, it can be warranted, but in some sense, it becomes, I think, dogmatic.
Okay.
Um, that we
Oh.
have to accept that at some point in time that all humans are going extinct, and that's going to be happening exactly 1.5 to 2 years, maybe 5 years or 10 years from now. Um, so obviously, I
Ooh,
don't adhere
ooh.
to that view, and that's like loosely speaking. I can't speak for everyone, but that's
Right.
some of the kind of sentiment that I'm getting from folks is that if you don't believe that humans are going extinct somewhere between 1.5 to 2 to 5 or 10 years from now, and from now is always a moving point. For me,
Yeah.
from now started in 2016, or
Yes.
5 years from 2016 now. So, um, you know, but I wanted to talk about this because I think it's just first of all, it's a natural tendency. Humans are really, really bad at dealing with things that are abstract. Humans are really, really bad at dealing with things that are beyond their visual boundaries. So things that we can't see are actually kind of hard to imagine. For example, when I say a million people, well,
Yeah.
most humans have never seen a million people in a context before. And so
Yeah.
they literally just can't imagine what that looks like. What would it look like for a million people to be standing side by side in your city? You have a visualization of a crowd of people for as far as the eye can see, but that
True.
doesn't actually give you a good sense of what a million people will look like. Because
True.
if I asked you a question, well, what did 10,000 people look like? Or 100,000? Well, the same sense will keep on coming to your mind, and actually, those are factors of 10. Um, so humans are just really, really bad at dealing with
Yeah.
large data sets.
Think. Hmm.
And climate change presents us with huge, huge data sets where basically we look at it, our brain shuts down and says, oh, so basically you're saying the world is ending. Well, yes, but I tell you tomorrow or
Right.
next week or in 10 years, and a lot of times we just can't. All we're getting is all this bad data. Surely that means it's going to happen tomorrow. Well, the Earth's system, again, is not something you can really imagine. You've seen a picture from space on your TV, on your cell phone, but you have
Mm-hmm.
no idea. I've seen a picture of the Sierra Nevada. When I was there, it blew me away. Actually, being there, giving a real sense of scale, really changes how uh, you think about the world. Now, ultimately, I say this in the lead up to the next kind of question I get from this is, well, Antonio, um, let me say that the data is so bad. Are you trying to say that the situation is better than what's being accounted for? I'm absolutely not
Sure.
saying the situation is better than what's being accounted for. We really are in a Herculean crisis that
Mm-hmm.
really goes beyond our ability to articulate. Um, and we can't articulate it because we're talking about a planet, which means that things are happening on a geologic scale, but they're happening actually on a human lifetime. Those scales are really, really so different that even to talk about mismatching
Totally.
them the way that we do, um, really you can't comprehend what is going to happen into the future. What I tell people is it certainly is a good idea to have a sense that the future is going to be um, more challenging. Uh, to be frank, it is going to be worse um, than the past that we've enjoyed. Um,
Yeah.
it will,
Enjoyed.
and
Duh.
and you think about it, all of the horrors that we enjoyed during a calm climate, well, all those things are just going to be horrifically exacerbated as we face climate breakdown. So I am not trying to paint a rosy picture for people to grapple with, but I'm not also trying to paint a picture that just doesn't seem to be bearing with the facts,
Right.
with the reality. Um, so, Sandy, you have a question for me?
Well, so you know the old saying, and when you made that Facebook post, and I'm not gonna sit and tell everybody what it was. It was just a Facebook post about doing something for your family, basically, in the
Yeah.
future. Okay, and it was touching. It was a thing, but to me, did it invoke the act as if? Act as if the world's not falling apart, or act as if, have you ever heard that statement?
To me, I guess the moment that I want to bring everybody's attention to is the actual last few moments in the film, Don't Look Up,
Okay.
where Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer are, I forget their character names in the movie, but they're sitting
Right.
at the table with their family and they're having, what looked like in my family would be a Sunday dinner.
Hmm.
Um, and what do you do when the asteroid has made contact?
Exactly.
You
What do you
know,
do?
some people, if you want to live your life in horrific panic, Um, right on up into that moment, fine. And for some people,
Okay.
you know, but this asteroid impact, I think the problem with that analogy is that the asteroid impact actually is something that happens within 24 hours. That is not the climate scenario, even with a claff rate gun type
Mm-hmm.
methane burst scenario, which would certainly hasten and expedite our calamity. Um, but, ask what people are talking about when they talk about human extinction. Um, I can't even talk to one of my friends about this because I feel like there's just such a certainty, but the certainty doesn't actually make sense. What you're saying is, in order for climate change, and this is what I find funny about this. So I'm one of the people who say humans colonizing Mars is about a 0% chance. Most certainly for the next 100 years. I would even say into the next thousand. Um, but there are people today who think something like that is possible. And I ask those people, okay, so what is supposed to happen to Earth where it's less habitable than
Yeah,
Mars?
really. Good
Because
question.
that is the only thing that's going to cause human extinction. Now, if you're a guy like me who comes from a background of international relations and you see an intersectionality between abrupt climate change and its downward, degradation on our society
Yep.
and nuclear war, that's something that could do that. But the idea that there's going to be methane burps in the Arctic, and it's going to be so hot, it's going to be the equivalent of a literal nuclear war.
You think that that's definitely exacerbated in the media
Well,
or
it's just
the reports.
it's as silly as saying that there's no climate change happening at all.
Right. Does the research bear that out, Antonio?
Well,
I mean,
that's the problem. The
we've
research
covered
doesn't.
this ad nauseum. Jennifer, me, you, Nick. I mean, we have covered the methane bomb. She did a whole thing on the methane bomb, and it is
Right.
it
The
is
the
that people
methane
want
monster.
to,
And I
yeah.
told Jennifer I
Methane
love I
monster.
loved what she did in her work. And that's the thing. Again, humans are really bad at in their heads running scenarios and models of data.
Ah,
So what I think a lot of people are realizing is that we've overloaded the community.
overshoot.
And,
Oh,
and
we've
what was so
overshot
fun
our own community. We've
and what
overshot
was
our
so
own
funny
community.
what was so funny is that the guy we talked in our direct messages afterwards, and he was sending me all this information of scientific research that was being published, I think, in the last 2 years. And I sent him a video that I did 4 or 5 years ago about the same thing.
Who was
And I
that?
was like, "Do I?"
Who? Where was this?
This was a video. It was he was sending me data on.
Oh,
Well, I'll talk a
somebody
little bit
from our
about the.
community. Okay.
Yeah, the
Okay.
guy from our community,
Hmm.
because he was saying, Antonio, maybe you're not keeping abreast of all the latest data, and that's maybe why you're saying these things or
About
whatever.
family in the
And
future.
so he
Yeah.
sent me the latest data, and I showed him a video that I was talking with Dr. James White 4 or 5 years
We
ago.
showed that on this channel. Yes.
So it was so funny because, and I said, again, to me, I come from the world of academia, and this is a bias. I've been wrestling with this data every single day.
Yeah.
I really do think about this every single day. I really, really do think about this every single day. I want to say that one more time. I really do think about this every single day.
Every
And
day.
so for me, at first, it might seem counterintuitive. Well, Antonio, if you think about this every single day and you're looking at the data, then for sure you know that this is coming down quick. I do agree. I mean, I'm a historian, but quick is a relative term. When you talk about the fall of the Roman Empire, it took over 1,000 years. But Rome was definitively at a point in time about halfway through, we can look back and say that it was on its decline. It went through the fall of the Western Empire and
Mm-hmm.
then the consolidation into the Eastern Byzantine Empire, Constantinople, and then the fall of Constantinople,
Right.
essentially.
Right.
But those things again are happening over hundreds, thousand, a millennia. This is something that, like I say, will be happening in the course of a human lifetime. that we are going to witness. I've already witnessed already in just my
Yeah.
30 years of life a complete change in my expectations for the climate um, in just 30 years. I mean, that is magnificent. What that means for our civilization is that, yes, I don't want to confuse people or disillusion people. We are talking about the end of the civilization, end of the world, end of our civilization as we know it. Um, but what that means, well, is
How do
quite
we
frankly a lot of different
we
things.
well, and how we all choose to live with this knowledge, and like you said, do we live in a, a horrific panic? Do we do what we need to do and still maybe do our activism and our teaching? And there's a lot of people that follow us that are out there teaching, um, like Singing Way. There's people I've had on that are guests that are, proponents of, solar energy. I mean, do we stop? Just stop? What do you do? We don't just stop.
And that's another thing is that you do want to ask these people, and a lot of them will say, because I don't like to think about people in a monolith. There are many people that say things that, well, we should continue to do the good things anyways. And I say, so then what's the difference? This is the same type of conclusion I've come to people who believe in Jesus. If you're somebody who believes in Jesus, then it doesn't matter if you, as long as you support Medicare for all. I don't care if you believe in Jesus or Muhammad or whatever. As long
Right.
as yeah, so ultimately those type of things don't matter what people believe in the end. As long as we understand that we're all in a crisis and we understand what are those things that are contributing to those crises, and then we also have a moral understanding that even if first of all, I don't, even taking on this terminology, it's too late. You've heard that. Well, too late for what?
Yeah. I have a question from Kevin Hester, actually. You up for it?
Sure.
Hi,
I like Kevin
Kev.
Hector and I respect his
Hester.
work.
I'm surprised Antonio doesn't understand the rate of change and the exponential function. Oh,
Well, see, this is part of the data set problem. And I don't even, that the question's even, Kevin, if you don't mind me punching you in the gut a little bit intellectually, but it's a decontextualized question. So what does that mean? I don't understand the exponential function. So what?
exponential.
The world's going to end in 2 years or 10 or
Right. That
25?
we know that exponentially, the changes that we're seeing are not linear. They're exponential. They're faster than previously expected. To put that term that is used quite
Right, and
often.
again, it's a data set issue. We have a hard time with basic, when I was doing that exercise, 10,000, 100,000, a million, that's just a factor of 10. So obviously an exponential function is more complex. So obviously, again, yes, I've taken in consideration that some of the elements that we're seeing in the planetary Earth dynamic system
Mm-hmm.
are changing exponentially. There's also a term that I want to introduce people to called logarithmic or superlinear. So exponential is not the only function out there. I think that again that just happens to be a lack of. Most people won't even be able to tell the difference between a super linear function and an exponential function. Most people just don't have that. I'm not picking on Kevin. Perhaps he would be able to,
No,
but
we know you're not
is he
picking on
referring to
Kevin.
what is he referring to? Is the global average temperature increasing exponentially? Is that what he's saying? Because that's not true. You might argue that the global average temperature is increasing superlinearly, but there's just simply not enough data to support that it's increasing exponentially.
What the rate
Global
of?
average temperature.
Oh, okay. You're
So if
not.
you look
You're
at the
right.
global average temperature from 1750 to 2023,
Oh, the baselines.
and you run a Lowe's curve. Now we're using mathematical terms here, but you have to run a Lowe's curve, which is a smoothing line through the data set. Do you get an exponential function from that? No, you don't. So, so when people say these terms, again, using the word exponential in a colloquial sense and then saying, well, hey, do you know what I mean in a colloquial sense? No, I don't know what you mean in a colloquial sense, but in a technical sense, the answer is no.
Okay, well, Hans has to come on here. He because his is just the quintessential. Okay, does it mean that we're fucked? Antonio.
Yes, I mean, and
Yes, yes,
that's
it
the
means
part
we're
that's so
fucked.
that's so annoying. But
Yeah,
that you keep
we
on
love
screwing to
Hans.
people because it's either you're telling people that everything's okay, or you're telling people that we're fucked. There's
Yeah, there's
no.
the right how to live the middle ground without being your head in the sand like an ostrich, or you are just so depressed that it's.
And I want to know. I'm shouting back out to Kevin. So when you
Is
told me I
Kevin
don't
still here,
understand the
Kev?
exponential function, what does that mean? What are you trying to say? That Antonio, if you understood the exponential function, you would know that the world's going to end when? Give me, I mean, come on. If we're going to play this game, what does
Well,
that
Kevin,
mean?
I could send Kevin a link to come on, but I don't know if he's ready, and I don't know what time it is there. But this is fascinating because it's everybody in our community that's here. We all care for each other. So
Sure. I mean,
this
yeah, and
is
that's why this is fun
no,
because
yeah,
I
this
think
is
it's time that we box this out. I want you to tell me exactly what you mean. I think part of the problem is in communities like this, we create circle jerks. I don't want to jerk anyone's circle anymore. I want to shove people a little bit, and turn this into a square. And so when people make assertions, and this comes from Guy McPherson, okay? That's where this comes from because Guy McPherson never explained exactly what were the mechanisms that were going to cause human extinction. Everybody
yes,
just
he does.
assumed.
I thought he did. He was
Well,
taught.
this
He
is what he
talks about
says.
evolutionary changes
This is
and
this sure. This is what he says in summation. Okay,
all right.
or this is the gist that yes, climate change is happening. The current episode of climate change is happening 100 to 1,000 times the rate of background evolution, which is absolutely true. Um, and then it goes on, I think, just making these big jumps. So if we get a BOE, blue ocean event, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to have, I guess, we're going to have a huge burp of methane from the Arctic. And then that huge burp of methane is going to raise temperatures so fast that I guess
It's Titanic time.
well, what, no, but that's what I'm leaving people to think about. What
Okay.
does that mean? Does that mean once the methane goes up, that within, as Guy McPherson said, within 6 months to a year, the ability to grow food around the world will all vanish?
Right. I got you.
I mean, think about, and I want to ask you this.
Torstein's here. He knows a lot about it. That's why I put his comment up. I mean, he said Arctic methane in Svalbard is rising exponentially right now. But what does that mean for everybody in the world? We've talked about this before. It changes the jet stream. It changes patterns. It changes well, the heat. The methane. But it's a
Yeah, but we're
shorter.
seeing
It's a
these
shorter
things,
lived
we're
gas.
seeing smaller versions of,
Okay.
the building up catastrophe, right? We've seen the polar vortex drop down. We've seen, and actually, I mean, Noah's doing a really good job. I mean, we're racking up these $1 billion um, extreme events like nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really happening. I mean, I'm not, again, it's really happening. But have we seen in the United States? I mean, has anyone seen the food supply? It's been threatened by that in any type of meaningful way.
Well, in the grocery stores, I went into a big grocery store and it sure didn't look like that to me. And I didn't even video it like some other people do.
So,
But
but that's what I'm saying. I mean, and we
we're
certainly
still
are, though.
shipping our
And
shit
don't get
all
me
over.
wrong, guys. We are seeing large impacts to the agricultural system around the world from climate change specifically. So I just want people to think about that. The amount of farmland that exists on planet Earth right now
Mm-hmm.
in square area would cover the entire continent of South America. And it's
Wow.
spread out across the world. So you're going to need like a really, really something like almost literally like an
Uh-huh.
asteroid impact to take out all that food in 6 months to a year. I mean, that just isn't.
Yeah, or a nuclear war.
I mean, that's what I'm saying, and
And that, but
that's the
is that
part
not
that just
potentially
isn't.
something that could happen, Antonio? I mean, human being. Just because it hasn't happened recently that some whack job got hold of nuclear weapons, that's a
Again,
conversation in the community.
I come from a background in international relations and comparative politics. So certainly there is an intersectionality between nuclear proliferation and climate change. But again, that is not the same thing as the methane bomb causing, um, I guess, the global food supply to disappear in
Right,
six
right.
months.
Overnight.
And that's just not
Terrifying
a
people.
tangible view of the world. I mean, if you're saying things like that, it just doesn't. Again, a methane burp, now also depending on the size of the burp, right? Are we talking about 5 gigatons? Are we talking about 10 gigatons? Are we talking about 20 gigatons? Are we talking about over the course of a year? Are we talking about in the course of 10 years? So all those things, of course, matter as well. But you are not going to have releases of methane that are so immense that they're going to
Right.
wipe out the ability to grow food for the
Worldwide.
entire planet in 6 months
Okay.
to a year. That's just not going to be the case scenario. What is going to most likely be the case scenario is that we will take um, the methane bursts will probably continue throughout the climate change process. So it's not like there's going to be a time where there's just going to be an episode of burping. The burping will probably go on for literally hundreds or not
God, I
thousands of
wish I had a
years.
burp sound. Damn it. I have a flush. We could flush we can flush definitely flush the methane down. The environmental coffee house flush of the day. We're flushing the methane
And I
down.
think people are right to be worried. Um, let me say it like this. I think that the highest potential for the planet to get realistically between now and 2100 is between 5 and 7 degrees Celsius global average.
Well, that's game over for a lot of
That's
people
that's
pretty
well that's not
quickly.
that's way game over. I mean 4C is it's game over for civilization. So 5 to 7 would be that is and I don't know how to describe that. I think about things very excuse me, there's the burping. I think about things very scientifically. So I don't think about 0 or 100. Things are never
Mhm.
0 or 100. But I mean, I'm hard pressed to imagine where humanity would be. Again, the world is still much more habitable than Mars at 5 to 7 degrees Celsius above today. But what that means for humanity, my God. Um,
Book Hermit, I'm still hoping for positive Tennessee. We do have comedian.
Well, of course, that's another thing. When you talk about 2100 and people see the graph cutting off, but of course there are dates after 2100. And if the
Yeah, we
world
won't be
goes,
here.
well, I keep on, and that's another thing as a
Amoebas
historian that
might be here. Something that doesn't need a lot of oxygen might be here. Who knows? We don't know, right? Right.
that's another thing I try to give people perspective on. I'm a historian, and my historical era or my study is really American history, which isn't that old, right? Because the country's founded
No,
in
not
in
old. In
1776.
fact, what's going on like this? Oh my gosh. It's not that old, but it is sick.
Imagine this. Imagine if the people of 1800 were where we are today.
You mean in heat? In
In
temperature?
terms of
In terms of what?
let's say instead of the industrial revolution happening in 1750, it happened in 1550 instead. And so by 1800, 1823, those people are right where we are.
Okay.
Do we get here? I mean, think about first of all how little bit of a time there's actually been between 1823 and 2023. And it's just amazing to think that it is possible that the world is so utterly changed that in just 200 years from now, I mean, it's incredible to think about. It really,
30
really.
years from
Yeah.
now. Okay, I want to ask you a question too. What is your attitude on the aerosol masking effect and the fact that it is an issue if we stop burning fossil fuels
I
for the
wanted, and
heating
I
of the
was going to
planet?
ask if we were going to pull up the Earth Null School project because the
Oh,
Earth Null School.
I didn't get anything ready.
Well, no, 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 no. I was doing it in my head, and I, and
Oh,
I, and I. It's funny because I said to myself, I should. This is the one thing I probably want to show at Sandy,
shit.
and now, of
Well,
course, an opportunity to show it
well,
comes
I
up, and
could
it'd be a perfect
try.
opportunity.
Well, let me play with it while you're talking.
Okay,
Go
yeah.
for it.
Well, she does that because it would be actually the perfect opportunity to tell people
All
how
right, let me see if
serious.
I can get this up.
If
You
she's able
talk.
to do this, folks, this will be a very good opportunity to show you how serious the aerosol masking effect is. The aerosol masking effect is probably one of the scariest things, I think, in relation to dealing with, if it was magically possible, theoretically possible, to deal with climate change in such a way that we could avert catastrophe. Dealing with the aerosol masking effect, it makes things very, very difficult. Um, why? Because it turns out that the massing is quite profound. It's profound, and more importantly, oh, perfect. So Sandy,
Well, you
click
have
on
to tell me
Earth.
what I'm supposed
Yeah,
to
I'm
look
about to rock you through it
for.
right now. Click on Earth.
All right, click on the
No, not
Earth.
the
Oh,
planet
down
Earth.
at the
Click on
bottom. All right, remember, I'm okay. I will
no,
try
you're
to.
fine. You're
All right,
fine.
I'm going to try to follow directions. Okay, Earth and what? Data, date, what?
Okay, so click on where it says mode and there's air highlighted. Click on
Yep,
Kim.
yep.
And
Okay,
then click on where it says overlay.
yep.
Go to SO2. So SO2, now we can now click on the word Earth again.
All right.
Okay, now we can look at the planet. So this is a good model here. This overlay shows us sulfur dioxide. Why did I choose sulfur dioxide? Because sulfur dioxide is the main chemical pollutant that comes out of burning coal,
Mm.
industrialized. You also get sulfur dioxide from forest burning, from volcanoes and things like that. But what's going to be interesting here is that we've heard before science, climate change deniers say things like, well, aren't volcanoes worse than human civilization? This graph will
Oh,
end all of that. So all of the red here is sulfur dioxide emissions.
all right.
Now, like I said, there's only a couple of sources where sulfur dioxide emissions come from. If you look at over the oceans, there's virtually no sulfur dioxide emission, right? So there's nothing being burned over the ocean that's releasing sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. But if you look at the continents, Sandy, can you zoom into our home country, North America, the United States? You
Yeah.
got to click on the planet and then just kind of scroll. Yeah, there you go.
I've used it before. Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
here we are. And where
So
do you want to look at? Where I live?
you can just
Where
keep it
you
here.
live?
This is actually a particularly bad day to look because I can already tell because I've looked at this so many times that the picture has changed. There's a lot more wildfires in this picture in Mexico and in Canada and across the United States.
Wow.
But most of the red in this picture, most of the red, I would say almost 90% of the red in this picture, maybe 80% on this day, because there's a lot of wildfire. All that wildfire you see, all that red in Canada is wildfire smoke,
Mm-hmm.
guys. And that's actually immense amounts of wildfire. I have not actually noticed that, but that's immense amounts of wildfire smoke, actually. If you look at Canada on a good day, you don't see nearly anything like that. That's not coal burning in Canada. That's wildfire smoke, and that's actually quite incredible.
Yeah, and it
But
had been
over,
coming here too. We could tell. The news told
but
us.
over the east coast of the United States and the eastern seaboard, most of that red is actually because of coal burning. So when people compare volcanoes to what we're doing, that is what we're doing on a daily basis. No volcano in history. I mean, this would be like a super volcano. Now let's scroll over to China if we can look at China.
All right.
Yeah, this isn't wildfire smoke in China, people. This is industrial
Where am I?
civilization. This
Wait.
is China. Right now, you can see India. This
Oh,
is the
yes,
eastern
here I
part of the
am.
world. And you can actually
Here
see
we
there's
are.
some lines.
Look at the
Sandy, if you
purple.
can hold the picture, you can see there's some lines of red. They're like streaks in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Those are shipping lanes because ships in their dirty engines blow up so much sulfur dioxide. You
Unreal.
can actually see shipping lanes. That's how much traffic we got. So when people talk about are we in a crisis? Yes.
Of
I mean the
course.
planet is there's a super volcano happening on every habitable planet or habitable continent on the planet. This is the side. This is so when we're talking about aerosol massing, all of the red is what we're talking about. Look how much ground area is covered. That's what we're talking about when we talk about aerosol massing effect. Is this effect real? Oh, you bet your asses it's real. And this is scary because this is like the punch 22. If we clean up our act, it is going to get hot in here. you know,
So
um,
cleaning up the act, not cleaning up the act, it's just it. Well, we're not cleaning up the act. I mean that we might. I'm just saying it. It's not going to happen. It is not
and
being
this
cleaned
would be
up.
one of
It's being
those, this would be
changed.
like a ricochet. You know, this is also one of the warmings that would be like a ricochet. This is not the gradual warming. We would assume, let's say that we did like a Green New Deal
Yeah.
across the planet, and somehow we lowered our emissions down to zero by 2030. All that red would have essentially, except for the wildfires. Now, scroll up a little bit more north because I want people to get an idea what wildfires look like. So just
Whoop.
scroll a little bit more north so we can look at Russia. So you can see the burns in Russia. Uh, those burns in Russia are mostly wildfire smoke. So you can see wildfire smoke is not nearly as concentrated as industrial civilization, fossil fuel burning. It's a lot more spread out usually, and sometimes it's hard to tell. But you can, I mean, obviously in Siberia we're not burning any type of large scale coal factories. So any type of fire you see in
No.
Siberia is a really good like
And they're
way to
actually
see.
closing down some of the nickel and nickel. Some of the places they're closing them down. They're stopping.
And just for people to understand,
Mm-hmm.
look at Greenland, look at Alaska. That's how much sulfur dioxide is normally in the Earth's atmosphere. Almost none. Okay? What we're doing is absolutely incredible. If there were no industrial human civilization, there would be virtually no red on this map.
It's
Okay,
unreal.
so the
Yeah.
fact that we're seeing that is absolutely absurd, and we're doing this every day. Every day we're doing this.
Yes, every day. So then, how could you not be a doomer? There's there's the magic question. Yeah, I know.
Well, again, it depends on what your definition of doomer is.
I
I'm
know. See, that's the
someone who,
thing. That's why I hate labels. And I like what Jeremy said. I love doomer adjacent. You're there, but you still have a little bit of not hope so much, but more like a verve for life, you know? You do
well, I'm just
things.
saying the planet itself is extremely resilient. I mean, what we are doing is going to destroy our human industrial global civilization without a doubt. I mean, look at the
Without a
scale of
doubt.
what we are doing.
Yep.
But does that mean we're going to have human extinction in 10 years?
I
Those
want
are
to play
two
with this.
totally different things to say. No,
Can
we're not going to have human extinction in 10 years unless there's a nuclear war. And that's always been true. We're always, if there's going to be a nuclear war in 1963, there was going to be human extinction.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's
but,
right.
but climate change is not going to cause human extinction in 10 years.
Not in 10 years.
We
But
will
we
see
just see things getting more difficult for
a
more
lot, and
people, and
things
it's going
will.
that will extrapolate to other countries, to other countries, to other countries. It will happen. Maybe not in my lifetime, but it might or will in yours, Antonio. I do believe.
I mean, go back and read The Age of Consequences, folks. I mean, the United States Pentagon, I think, did a really good analysis in 2007. Um, and they were using the best data they had at the time, plus data that the public isn't aware of. Um, and I think their conclusion about kind of how where things are headed, and their conclusion was by 2040 we're looking at the fall of the United Nations.
2040, huh?
They're talking about a chaos scenario. And again, that's not necessarily the end of human civilization or
No,
human extinction, but
no.
I mean, think about a world where it is as chaotic as World War II or more. I mean, that's the type of world that they're talking about.
Who's they?
That
Who was they?
This is the Center for International Strategic Studies releasing the Age
Okay.
of Consequences in
Okay,
2007.
that's right. That's what I wanted you to
Um,
say.
and we covered that document several
Mm-hmm.
times here on this channel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes,
if
we
you
did.
want a good sense of the future that we face, go read that document tonight.
The age of
Uh,
consequences.
and look at their midline scenario, because that's about the pace that we're on, is their midline scenario. They have an expected scenario, a severe scenario, and a catastrophic scenario. And it's much more advanced than the IPCC, by the way, even despite it being back in 2007. And I think many of our audience will find that enjoyable, that these guys are a lot more serious than the IPCC, despite their document coming out in 2007.
Well, listen, Torstein wants to come on, but I don't know if I can make it work. Do you want me to try, or should we schedule a show where you guys can be the together? I think we should do that.
He wants to come on now.
Yeah, but
What,
I don't know if I can do that, if I can make it happen. He says he wants to set you straight. I think we should do a show together and reschedule it and do a part two, and maybe have Torstein come on and someone else too.
well, yeah. If somebody wants to set me straight, set me straight. You know, I'll accept that challenge. I mean, and that's the first thing I thought I talked a little. I thought I did talk about a class rate gun. I thought I did talk about Arctic methane here.
Yeah, you
Um,
have. We've talked about this for 6 years. I
yeah.
mean, we've talked about a lot of stuff for years, years. But I actually think we will set this up and we're going to do a part two. So this, yeah,
I
why
like
not?
that.
Yeah, I would
I'm
too.
going on vacation to El Salvador this week, so I maybe after my vacation sometime we can sit down for part two.
That's going to be an interesting trip. And the information you're going to bring back and let us know how it is there for everybody in El Salvador. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to be a thing to look forward to. We'll do a part two. Gives Torstein plenty of time. Get his ammunition.
He estado estudiando y practicando mi española.
Ooh.
¿Cómo está mi española?
Ooh. 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 So okay. Let's look at some of the comments that are here since we're at
Sure.
43 minutes. And we all probably know about this one. James Hansen's new report, Global Warming in the Pipeline, narrated by Paul Beckwith, shows 1.5 degree global warming by 2024. So sad. Love you guys.
Well, I did watch that video. I don't know if he said 2024, but the certainty was 90% between now and 2030. So within the 2020s, we're supposed to get 1.5 or
Yeah.
higher
It's going to affect a lot of
this
wildlife.
decade for sure, as a single year, not as a permanent global average temperature, but as a single year, we probably will peak over the 1.5 degrees Celsius guardrail.
Okay, let's see here. Obsolete Optics, who is also I call him the boss of the Environmental Coffee House Discord. I made him boss. He said, where is it? Oh, the Mars one. Okay. So by the time you get to Mars, you've been exposed to so much ionizing cosmic radiation from space that your astronaut career would be over and you would be grounded. That's why we can't get there. Thank
That's
you.
one of the things that I talk about. It, I did a show specifically on this whole idea, didn't I, Sandy?
Yes. Yeah, we
On that
have
whole
it in the
idea.
archives. And Sorry, guys, for my brown tongue. I'm drinking my mushrooms.
Ah,
Not
makes me laugh
hallucinogenic.
every time.
Yeah, right, but it's not hallucinogenic. They're just anti-inflammatory, not so sexy as hallucinogenic. Mm-mm. No, but everybody knows when I do my shows and I'm drinking this shit, I have a brown tongue and it looks kind of it looks like it's an exponential problem. A brown tongue. All right, let's see what else. I think Steve was talking about that Guy McPherson. He explains the mechanism, ecosystem, and social collapse, rapid nonlinear responses. So he does. I mean, I do listen to him. He explains
we're
that.
we're seeing rapid nonlinear responses in our ecosystem, in our climate system, manifest through the weather now. I mean, I tell Sandy, we're in a group chat group, and any time
Yep.
that we have these extreme weather, I mean, there's been times saying I text you and what we're doing 30 degrees above our average high temperature. We see these all the time, but we're still growing food in North Carolina.
Jim says that carrying capacity of humans is between 100 and 600 million, not 8 billion. Something will snap. And Jim Mass is another one of our team on this channel who comes on, and we've all been together on our State of the Planets, which we should get back together. And Nicholas has been doing his PhD, and everybody's busy, but we will definitely do that. Let's see what else. Gary Hoover, lovely person, Gary Hoover. I think what we need to do now is to create radical communities of care. That is what we are here for anyway. But the global poly crisis strips away illusion and attachments, sets us free. Yes, and that's what a lot of people talk about. Gary is community. I mean, what do we have left? After when it gets worse. What do you think about that, Antonio? Radical communities of care. And Gary does a newsletter. You should get his newsletter. It's quite nice.
I mean, it doesn't sound too different things that I hear like Marianne Williamson is saying. Creating an economy of love that we have to start taking care of each other. And I think that's always been true. I think that's always been true. I
Sure.
think
But
that
will it happen?
oh, I'm not very optimistic about the will.
And our friend Singing Way. Peter Joseph is revealing a plan for an alternative system we can all opt into. So when collapse comes, we will be a organized network of well-intentioned people.
No, I don't. I do want to disabuse people of that notion. Okay, so the idea of the only possible, co- you know, re-civilization organizing thing that is even possible
Right.
is if we're preparing for that as a mass-wide civilization now, like a war effort, with the understanding, okay, we're going to lose this, but this is what we're doing in preparation to save. There's not going to be small communities in a climate change scenario because once the climate gets bad enough that human civilization collapses, it certainly is going to be so bad that small communities, especially ones that don't have immense resources at their fingertips, they're just not going to. I mean, it's not. It's,
Obsolete Optics says a lot more efficient than endless subdivisions of single family homes and single story strip malls. And I see it every time. That's another problem I have. Every
You
time
know
I
what?
have
And
to
I do
go,
say that is
I
uniquely a
hate it.
Canadian American problem.
Oh, it's a
Uh,
horrible problem.
I will say, if you do look at how humans have built cities elsewhere around the world, almost everyone else has done it a lot better than us. There's no such thing as a sustainable, quote unquote, sustainable city. But in terms of have no regard for sustainability, only American and Canadian cities look like that. That's actually not something that you find. Increasingly, it is happening as we are westernizing, globalizing the world. But most of the world doesn't live anywhere close
No,
to the United States. So, so,
no.
so that's a here problem.
Oh, somebody wanted me to do something on that. what is that? 250 HPA under height mode air overlay. Let me see. On the, I'll go back to that. Why not? We'll play with it. Let's go back to the screen
Or no
share.
school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Earth Null School and 250. All right. All right, guys. Let's see if we can help Greg. 250 HPA. Where do I find that? Under height. Where's height? Do you see height? I'm not sure that I can do what he's asking. Wind for the jet stream. All right. Well, here's wind. I only have
Oh, you
wind.
can look at judge string animations. So if you click on when, you have to go back to mode, Sandy,
Okay, right here.
and click on air.
Okay.
There's mode. And now you can go to the height.
Oh, okay. So it's
The
just a lot
height
more.
that you want
Yeah,
to look at is
250.
probably,
He said
yeah.
250
So two,
under.
yeah, 250 is
Okay.
good for, yeah.
I want to play with this. It's just nerve-wracking when you're playing with it live. All right, and the sine wave on the low side, the sine wave on the low side, drought on the top side, drought. Okay, wait. Is that what we're looking at just by looking at this? Are we looking at droughts? I'm not sure if I'm missing something there, but I know we're looking at the jet stream. Pretty. Do you see? Is it a normal looking jet stream? It looks well different from what I
Yeah, that
grew up with.
overlay, I don't know if that's the best one. I
I don't
think
think so. I don't think so.
I'm pulling it up
Animate,
on my
mo,
computer as we're talking.
control, scale, source, date. I'm not sure. I really don't know much about, all these things unless I really play with it, which I don't get much of a chance to do. I'm sorry, Gary, but we tried. We tried. We're going back because we're almost on an hour and we have a lot of comments. So let me go back to us and we'll try to answer a few more
And
of
guys,
your
and that's another
comments.
thing. If we had the time to do, I would love to break down those climate tools, climate reanalyzer, Earth
All
Null
right.
School,
It'll be fun.
Ventusky, or some what people call Ventus Sky.
Yeah,
Um,
it's fun. It's fun to use these things and learn how to use them and understand what you're looking at. I mean,
and then there's, of course, there's the tools from GIS, GIS as well. NASA, they have really good temperature maps over there that I think people should look at.
okay. Yeah. So let's do that again. Let's do that again. And then we really do have to do a state of the planet. I really do miss that. So, and I know that Nicholas has a little time this year. So let me see if
Sure.
there's any more questions that oh, Fukushima. Half-life of enriched uranium is 4.8 billion years. When humans destroy ourselves, we will destroy all life on planet. What happens when nuclear energy facilities go unmanned? What's Fukushima? He
That's another one
brings
that
up a
I've been giving
point.
some thought to because, of course, I do think that that is a very large concern. But the truth is that I would just ask people who have that concern, go and do some nuclear facility research, and you'll find
Oh, he
that
has. He has.
I
Obsolete
th-
Optics has.
and, and you will certainly find that the way that Western facilities are designed in such a way that I know that the issue brought there was Chernobyl, but even, I mean, excuse me, Fukushima Daiichi.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But even looking at Fukushima Daiichi, that's an entirely different circumstance than what we saw in Chernobyl.
Yeah.
And the amount of radioactive material released into the atmosphere is on completely different scales. And I think what you would see is something more like what happened in Fukushima than what you would see in Chernobyl. So there certainly would be massive radiation release into the atmosphere, particularly because there will also be no one fighting back, presumably. But these facilities are encased in so much steel and reinforced concrete particularly in the West, that you're just not going to have a situation where these reactors melt down and the ionization, the rayonase, uh,
You don't
the
think so? Hmm.
yeah, it's just not going to be a situation where there's so much radiation ionizing the atmosphere that we're going to have a crisis. Certainly not on the scale that we could ionize the atmosphere and lose the atmosphere. There is a potentiality that large regions of the planet could become, well, they would they would already be uninhabitable because of what's
Yeah.
happening through climate change, but they'd be doubly
So it's
uninhabitable.
like Jennifer and I had our show, Pick Your Poison. Pick your poison.
And these are real
Ugh.
crises. Another crisis really quickly before you move on to the next one that I just think about is that, people are downplaying sea level rise again because we just don't understand the threat that it poses to us. So we think that, oh, that one's not as bad.
Hmm.
1 to 2 more feet of sea level rise is going to end our civilization as we know it in so many horrific ways.
There's so
We're
many
literally
ways.
talking about abandoning nearly all coastal cities. And with that, people don't understand. If you have to abandon all coastal cities because of the sea rise, it is because at that point, you're talking about coastlines across the world becoming Superfund sites.
Mm.
I mean,
Mhm.
think about Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
That water is, I mean, you don't want to be in that water, okay? And that would essentially be what every coastline in the world is going to start looking like in the post 2030, post 2040, post 2050 era.
Oh boy.
That's really scary.
It is. But again, as we go to be back to the beginning, we're not going to live our life scared. And guess who's here? Michael Dowd, post doom, who teaches us how not to live like that. How are you, Michael? He's late. He's going to watch tomorrow. So that's cool. Um all right. Well, let us, cuz it's we're getting to an hour,
Yeah.
and I have really been very busy, guys, obviously, doing my garden, and my that's my thing. I have one question from Nadia. I think the hedge fund, well, it's not a question. I think the hedge fund tax haven billionaires capitalist class needs to be apprehended and held accountable. Not much more can be done than punishing them.
Well, that's
Ooh.
certainly not going to happen. I think the Supreme Court, with all the corruption going on there, I think that they just threw corruption accountability out the window. So, absolutely no hope that that's going to happen.
Well, there you go. We covered the gamut of all kinds of things happening and not happening. And woo, yes, Trulia, we saw that. And I wrote to her, and I hope that Jennifer Francis will come on with us, with Jennifer and I. That would be a really great, yeah. No, Billy Joe, you're not scared. You're inquisitive. Me too. Sometimes I will say, Antonio, there are times when I start getting overwhelmed. And I do think of all this, and I think of it in terms of, well, Dawn, and you, and you're 34. She's 34, and you're 29. And I think of in terms of the younger people that don't quite have a grip on how serious things on our planet are. And that's, sometimes it's a panicky feeling. And then I go out and kill myself gardening and doing things I have the privilege to be able to do at this point in life, even though I'm falling apart. I mean, it hurts. What I do hurts, but I wouldn't give it up. Right. Not now. All right. So now that we did me, let's hear about you wrapping the night up, and we will do a bring on show with Torstein. Yeah, I think that'll be great when you come back.
Well, I hope, yeah, if anything that we got tonight was to always be skeptical. Keep on diving into the data. Um, and don't become dogmatic about anything in your life. Dogma usually leads to a wrong conclusion. Even if it's right at a particular point in time, dogma just doesn't change. and usually circumstances do. So, so with that being said, I just want to encourage everybody to continue to be as critical thinking as possible, even at the end of times, make it the best of times.
Oh, that was a great way to end. I love that. Well, thanks. I'm really happy that you came back, and I look forward to hearing all about your trip, and and having Torstein on to debate the methane question. So do a little studying too. This will be great, and maybe we'll set up. Maybe somebody else will join us, and we'll have someone else, with an educated outlook on this.
Absolutely.
All
I look
right.
forward to it. So,
Food for thought. All
hasta
right, guys.
luego.
So we are going to say good night. Love you guys. Yep.